Hey, everybody, it's Jeff here once again with the Money Trekker podcast. And today we've got my friend Jimmie Brown on from the CPA Lifeguard. And what we're going to talk about today was actually, we're going to riff on an article that he saw talking about the Great Resignation. Really what's going on in the hiring of, or in the employment world and what we're starting to see and how that really affects technology and everything else. So stay tuned. We'll be right back on in just a second. Hey, everybody, it's Jeff here once again with the Money Trekker podcast. And we've got my friend Jimmie Brown with the CPA Lifeguard on. Hey, Jimmie, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Jeff. How you doing today?
I am fantastic. Looking forward to this conversation. I read that article that you sent over to me, and I think it bodes a lot of questions of what business owners are going to do and kind of, some thoughts we might have in that world. So thanks for sending that over.
No problem. I thought it would be a fun topic, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't have to do with IT, but it does have to do with us in life and what direction we see this world going.
Yeah. Well, and I think it kind of sort of does have a little bit of something to do on the IT world because, more and more people are not really wanting to come back to the office. We've had that discussion before.
Right. But also too, from the standpoint of it's also, warehouse workers, professional services, just about every industry, that really 48% of the world is looking for new jobs.
Yeah. So why don't we start off? Why don't you kind of give us just a quick Cliff Notes version of what was in the article, and then we can kind of talk through that a little bit.
Okay. So after reading the article, a new Gallup poll actually found, or analysis found, that 48% of Americans of the working population is actively searching for a new job or looking for new opportunities. So they're looking for something that is hybrid, that comes with less stress. I can still work from home. I don't have to go in the office as much. And, they want that flexibility. And here's the thing. Usually sometimes you have to give up a little pay, right? Well, that's not the case. There are a lot of IT firms, there are a lot of companies that don't have to be IT firm, but a lot of companies that want to give you that flexibility. I think there's still that pre-COVID or post-COVID, I should say, post-COVID that still carries some weight there. And people are like, you know what? I enjoy being at home, spending time with my family, especially if I lost a loved one during that time.
Yeah.
I want that flexibility to spend more time with my kids. I think we're going back to the center of family first, is what I'm saying.
Which is not a bad thing at all.
Yes.
And I think, one of the things we were talking about pre-show was, before it was always, okay, well, you had to move someplace for an opportunity. I had to move to Austin, or I had to move to, Silicon Valley because that's where the opportunity was and everything else. And with this kind of new world order that was created last year, that's not necessarily so. So I might, as long as I have a good internet connection, I literally could live anywhere in the United States. And if I can work pretty much remotely, I could even live overseas if I wanted to, as long as I can work remotely and I've got a reliable connection and I can make the meetings that I have. That location is not necessarily a deal starter or a deal stopper in the hiring world.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
I'd be interested to hear, like, in your world, I'm thinking with CPAs, if, it seems like they're pretty hardcore of, we want you back in the office, but if it gets to the point where it's like, hey, we're willing to have remote folks, that solves a lot of problems for a lot of these CPA firms, right?
Yeah, it does. It does solve a lot. I guess it also depends on, let's just say, the age of the firm, right? So if you have a firm that's more, let's say that a younger firm, maybe that's 10 years or younger, accounting firm, I think they're more flexible.
Yeah.
I think that generation is just more flexible. Where if you have an accounting firm that's been around 25 or plus years, depending on, and I'm talking about small to medium size, not large or enterprise size. I'm thinking those are the ones that are like, we're still kind of stuck in our way in that. I mean, there needs to be a good reason why you could not be here, you know. But I do see some employees that do like that flexibility, or just like, you know what, I prefer to be at home. But majority of accounting folks are introverted. So we do work well by ourselves. We don't really need a whole lot of motivation to go and work. You know, we just get it done.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And it's like, okay, my perfect world is I don't really like people anyhow. So I'm kind of okay. I'm kind of okay being by myself in my house. So, you know, that I think that's the unique part about this. You know, I thought it was really cool in that article too, where they were talking a little bit about, you know, I mean, when you think about it, when almost 50% of the people are not happy doing what they're doing. And I thought they made a really good point is, if you've now got a whole bunch of unengaged people that are there, you know, at your office, then anybody new coming in, they're not going to really feel part of the team because the people that are there don't really feel part of the team.
Exactly, right. Everybody wants to feel a part that they can actually contribute to where the direction of the company is going, not just from a top level, but all the way down to the bottom level. It makes you feel part of it, right? So that they feel like they have a say, but also too, not just asking a question and making them feel like they have a part of it, but actually taking some of their suggestions and putting them to work, right? So, you know, if I have a suggestion, I think we should implement this in a top down and saying, yeah, why not? You know, there's a consensus saying, yeah, let's go ahead and let's move forward with that. How good would that make you feel that, hey, I'm being heard as a voice. I'm not just a number, and you're not just asking a question just to ask a question just to appease me, but you're actually going to actually move forward.
Yeah, you want my input into the process.
Right. You want my input, but you're also going to actually say, okay, you know what? We took a poll and we think, hey, majority of us want to move this direction. You're not going to please everyone, but if you can get majority of the people, that's great.
Well, and I think, I think the reality is that this hybrid world, as long as, I mean, you know, anything that requires you to physically be there, you know, that hybrid world, I think, is the world that we're going to live in going forward, which, you know, I think from an IT standpoint, that makes it somewhat challenging for you if they're, you know, if they're back and forth between work and home. That's got to be a bit challenging.
Well, I mean, only to a certain extent. I mean, like I told you before when we did a few podcasts previously, was that as long as the system is maintained, that you know, we put the system in, we're able to maintain it, good reliable connections. The worst thing I've seen pretty much is unreliable connections sometimes. And that does happen from time to time, you know, depending on who the provider is, or sometimes it's just reboot of a modem. Majority of the applications are all handled in the virtual world, so we can always handle those things on the back end.
Okay. Now, are you seeing, you know, now that clients are kind of, relenting that this is kind of going to be the new world, are they making more technological investments right now to ensure that they've got better connectivity at the homes, or is it kind of still being left up to the individual to make sure they've got good connectivity?
No, I mean, well, I think it's still left up to the individual for small to medium size. I think sometimes with the large enterprises that, yeah, you can find whatever connectivity that does work, but maybe there's a certain per diem or something, right? Like, hey, there's $50 or whatever that goes towards your bill for your internet if you're working from home. You know, I think that's just where it is. Far as there's still there is still backlog on some supply chains, even with, you know, obviously mobile phones, monitors, and things like that. There's still a chip crisis, I believe, that's still going on.
You still seeing the challenges like with monitors and stuff like that, or is that?
Yeah, I'm 2 months behind right now still, and the date keeps getting pushed back. So so eventually I'll get those monitors in place. And, some of the computers is kind of like, ooh, if there's available one, may not be the one what I actually want, but it's going to work. Then I'll go ahead and grab it.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's just grab whatever you can get at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I thought that was really interesting too in the story, because they were talking about, what they're seeing, or what they saw was that, the trend is at least 2.5 days a week, so you figure basically half the week you're not having to go in. I would say productivity, has got to improve somewhat. I think you're less distracted. I think if you get up and you go someplace and work, you're a little bit less distracted, but it's also, you're not spending, an hour in the car like I used to have to back in the day. It was an hour out and an hour back. So that was 2 wasted hours a day.
Right. Exactly. Right. So you're thinking productivity should go up, so they actually are starting at 8. Think about it. You get in, you start at 8. What do you usually do? If your computer's on, turn your computer on, you go get coffee, you go get your chat. Hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. Maybe you may start work at hopefully 8:15, but that may not be the case at some places. It could be later than that. So, the thing about it is that, you get up, do whatever you have to do, brush your teeth, whatever you have to do at home, sit down in front of the computer and go to work.
Yeah. Or my favorite movie, Office Space, my favorite movie of all time. Where he's talking to the Bobs. Well, can you describe your day to me? Well, I get in about an hour late every day, and I kind of sit around and don't really do anything. Right. Then I go to lunch, and then I kind of just space out for a while. Wait a minute, space out? Yeah, I just kind of sit here and stare at the walls.
Great movie.
Yeah. You actually get maybe an hour's worth of work out of me every day. So.
Right. And I still think sometimes that is true at some places.
Oh, I totally agree. No, it's funny when people were talking last year, I remember, multiple companies I was talking to in my consulting side of the business. And, they're like, oh, with this virtual thing, our employees are so much more productive being at home. And I'm like, well, of course they are, because they're like, okay, I've got X amount of work that needs to be done. And then I get to Netflix in the afternoon. So as long as I don't have meetings or something like that, I only have to work like a half day, and I can pack all that time in, all that work in. And yeah, I'm super productive.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's definitely, I think it's just a more comfortable setting. Right. Yeah. And then also too, we don't know, right, with this, what was it? Lambda and the Delta variant, the virus. Yeah. So that's still like an unknown. I still think there's some places that obviously want things to go back to status quo, but I just don't think it's never going to go back to where it was.
I personally don't either. I think, we've rolled over a tipping point at this point, and I just can't see us going back to the world, and I've got some pretty, from a client standpoint, I've got some pretty high speed, low drag clients, and they've really kind of just melded right into this world pretty easily, and I know from my own perspective, I typically before would do like 4 appointments a day, especially if I had to drive anywhere, and traffic around Austin's a nightmare. But now, I on a busy day, I can do 7 or 8 appointments in a day, so from an efficiency standpoint, it's awesome, because I can just go from one to the next to the next.
Yeah, I think because of obviously COVID, even the I call them the old schoolers that want to see you and shake your hand and everything, they've become adapted to it and say, okay, let's go ahead and do this virtual and still be able to look at you and body language and everything. You don't have to physically be there. However, you do get those 1 or 2, right?
You do, and there's. I think we get that, and we get some of our clients coming in that are just like, I'm going out. I don't care about this COVID thing. I want to meet in person. It's like, okay, that's fine. I don't care, quite frankly. What do I prefer? I actually prefer the Zoom appointments, and yeah, I do like to meet my clients, but I would rather meet my clients on a more fun type of a situation, or it's like once a year, maybe we kind of get together and do some planning,
right,
in person. But other than that, 90% of what we do can easily be done through Zoom. It doesn't require any kind of physical contact or interaction that way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in my case, obviously, we bring a new client on. We do usually do a face to face. We just have to do a face to face, right? But once we get things rolling, they really they'll see us quarterly, but they really don't have to see us unless they want to see us.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, for your industry, that kind of remote world has been that way for years. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I mean, you couldn't do your job if you had to get up and drive over to everybody's place, constantly. So, I think for you, this hasn't been a drastic change. For us, it was a really drastic change because almost 100%. I mean, I don't think we had ever, maybe once or twice, done a Zoom meeting with clients. We always either went to them or they came to us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I said, it's been a change. It's been amazing to see, the younger clients, I knew that they would be fine, but really the older clients that we have,
right,
they're totally fine with it because they've been doing like Zooms with their family and everything else. And, and Zoom's the most common one that people have used during this whole pandemic thing. So it worked out perfectly. Where, we just kind of slid right in there and they were used to it. And it's been really easy to build relationships and keep going with them.
Yeah, I think that's where it is right there. So the personal side, right? Your life.
Yeah.
So your life personally, being able to use the Zoom and talk to the grandparents or talk to the parents or kids or wherever they may be located.
Mm-hmm.
I think that made it easier for people to relate in the business world.
Oh yeah.
It just made it like more seamless. Like, oh yeah. We just did a Zoom with our kids or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
we get it. We know how to do. Yeah. Before
exactly.
There were always, oh my God, it's technology, and I have to panic. And it's like, okay, if you want to talk to your grandkids, you better learn how to use Zoom at this point, or FaceTime or whatever it is. You better learn that technology because you're not going to get to see your grandkids. And it's amazing how when you're put into that situation, people will do it. So.
Well, that's a necessity and a need, right?
Yeah.
I haven't seen the children. I got to see them. So I'm going to figure this out.
That's exactly right. And like I said, then it was easy to slide in from our business perspective and, and be able to do that.
Yeah.
I think back to our article, I think, the biggest challenge that's going to be, and we had this conversation, I had a client, had some prospective clients in last night, and we were kind of talking through this, and they've got a business where they've got a lot of they're part of the company, the owners, and like their W-2 employees is really small. It's only like 4, and then they've got a bunch of 1099 contractors, and they were like, it's hard to figure out what motivates them at this point, because they're like, we thought it was money that would motivate them, and it's like, that only goes so far. And they were saying, because a lot of their 1099s are in their 20s, and so he's like, for a lot of them, it's like, I want flexibility to do stuff, so I don't mind doing this job and then having another couple little gigs like delivering food or driving Uber or something like that, and they kind of piece together a life that they kind of control.
You know what? I'm seeing it in my son who's 18, and it's really strange. I'm used to, you're constantly working, you go to school and you work, and he's kind of like, okay, he saved up quite a bit of money, but also too, he's like, I'm gonna take some time off. I'm like, what? So, like,
what do you mean time off?
Time off. So I mean, before I start school, I'm gonna take a month or 2 off. I'm like, okay, don't understand where that's going, but but they're just like, the money definitely is not the motivating factor. It's important, but I think it's just flexibility and definitely less stress.
Yeah.
Less stress.
Yeah. Well, and I think, it's the days of that traditional, long commute, I think are getting to be less and less, although traffic has come back here in Austin like crazy. So, it's like my wonderful commute all last year, because we did get up and go to work every day. Man, my wonderful commute to my other office where it was like, oh yeah, I could get there in like 10 or 15 minutes. Now it's like 40 minutes to get to the office. I think more and more people are going to be, this kind of sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. And I think that's also prompting a lot of this, great resignation is people are like, screw it, I'll quit and I'll find something else. And I can do some small things in the interim time.
And that's the thing, right? So it's not like even with some of the, even some high level CEOs, right?
Yep.
Or CIOs, it's kind of like, I'll find something.
Yeah.
But right now, I don't have to have something lined up.
Yeah. Well, I've saved up money. I can do this. I've got a little bit of time that I can do this or whatever. And it's interesting. I think it's kind of, thinking from a benefits provider's perspective. What used to motivate people was, hey, people came to work with you because of benefits and stuff like that, and that's how employers differentiated themselves. And I think it's going to be really, really challenging for a lot of small businesses, which are a lot of our clients, to compete. Where, okay, I can work for, let's say, a ABC tech company, and I can work remotely and get benefits and all kinds of stuff. Why would I come to work for your small business where you may or may not even have a benefits package for me at this point? It's definitely it's an employee's market versus an employer's market at this point.
Right, it is. And I'm seeing extended weekends, right? So maybe Friday you don't work. Maybe you work Monday through Thursday. People are taking those types of options too. And some employers are being flexible to offer that.
Sure. Well, I mean, once again, that it's so funny. You get out of that industrial age mindset of, you have to work from 8 to 5. Why do you have, unless you're building cars in a factory or you're doing some kind of manufacturing, if it's just knowledge, why do you have to work from 8 to 5? Could you not work from, maybe that's not convenient for me. Maybe I want to work from 9 until 1, and then I want to take a few hours off and go hang out with my kids. And then I come back and I work from 4 until, 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Why does it have to be that 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, type of thing? As long as you get the work done, who cares when you work?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can't actually go back to the old way of saying, well, because this is the way it is. Now it's like, you actually have to answer that question. Like, I really don't know why you can't do it. I don't have an answer for you.
Yeah, well, and honestly, I thought about it. It's funny. I mean, even in our co-working spaces where we're actually physically, we have a physical location, we changed our hours during COVID because nobody was coming in at the beginning of COVID, of course. So, my wife and I were sitting there and it was like, hey, we were running the whole show by ourselves. So, it was whipping on us. And finally we're like, why are we sitting here until 5 o'clock every day? I mean, nobody's coming in. Why don't we just close at 4 o'clock? And anybody who was here who, had a spot, they had 24-hour access. So it's like, why do you don't need me here. You're running your own business in your own office. You don't need me here. So, we started that, we, cut it from 9 until 4. And, then all of a sudden we were sitting there, and Fridays are traditionally a slow day. And we started looking at it and we're like, well, why don't we just close at 3 on Fridays? It made us happier. It improved our world. And I don't need to be here. Now, a lot of times I'll go home and work after I get home, but it's good because it gives me time to get away from here and I can actually focus on the few things that absolutely need to get done that day.
Exactly. It's the flexibility. I shut off at 5. It's very difficult for me to work after 5. I don't even tell anyone I work.
Yeah, but you get up at like the crack of dawn. So.
Yeah, well, that's true. I'm sputtering on at about 3 o'clock. I'm on my way down.
Yeah.
So it's like, and it's not like I don't drink any type of caffeine or anything. So it's kind of like, okay, about 5, I'm probably not going to be useful, but majority of the things is handled remote. We have back end people that handle a lot of things too for me. So that takes the load off for me to go.
See, when you eventually get to retirement, it'll be perfect for you. I mean, you'll be hitting the buffets at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you'll be done.
Right, exactly.
You up at the crack of dawn, have breakfast at 6, and then dinner at 4, and you're done for the day.
You got it. That's the way to do it. I do try to be done by 6. By 6, but sometimes it doesn't happen. Or sometimes I get in a working mode where I don't even. Sometimes I may not eat breakfast until like 11 because I'm just going.
Yeah.
Then I go, wait a minute, I haven't eaten today. Let me go ahead and eat. And see, that's the thing too that employers really have to look at. That you have some employees that just go in there and start working and actually forget that they need to eat. It's like, shit, let me go in here and eat. But then but they are, they're being productive. They are getting work done.
Yeah. Well, that's once again, I think we have to quantify the work instead of the hours.
There you go.
If somebody is super hyper efficient and focused, I mean, I don't see why you couldn't work 20 hours a week. Why is my salary based on the number of hours of work that I work per week versus why is it not based on the amount of work that I accomplish and get out there?
You know what? You're right. I mean, you're thinking about what this is from, all the manual labor jobs from the past, right? So it's always stayed that way. Where now it needs to be built around the technology,
a project-based or
project-based. You're working towards a team goal.
Yeah.
That's really where it needs to be based around.
Well, and I think in the end, I mean, if you want to increase productivity, I think one of the ways to do it is you almost do. All right, we set. Everybody gets a salary. First off, so if it takes you 80 hours of work to get it done versus 20 hours a week, that's your fault. If you're not efficient enough to get it done in that time period, then it's cutting into your own personal time. But all right, we have a project goal of, hey, we need to accomplish this by X period of time, and if we get to X period of time, then we start to add either extra salary on when it gets to your reviews, or we give you a bonus or something like that to finish that project faster and get it complete. I mean, I think it's just going to be getting creative with how you incent people, because they're not necessarily going to be incented by, well, we give you a job and here's benefits.
No, that's the old model. And, if something needs to be changed or modified, right?
Yeah, totally agree.
As a center for the employee, especially for the younger generation, because they just don't function off that. They're
wired differently, and I think it's a mistake for people to think that they don't understand money. They understand money really well. They're the Robin Hood generation. They're out there trading stocks. They're learning how to do stuff like that. They're, buying cryptocurrency and everything else.
Right.
Now, they've also never experienced a down market or, a recession. So, they're going to have a hard learning at some point in time. But, they're a different animal, and we just have to kind of learn how to figure out what motivates them and then continue to keep them along that same path.
Exactly.
So, well, cool, man. I thought that was a great discussion topic. So what I'll do, folks, is I'll include a link to that article that we're talking about in the show notes page so that you all can read it for yourself. I thought it was a really well done article. And I think it's interesting to see where where we're all going. And I think, for those of us that are business owners out there, Jimmie and I included, we have to think, and this needs to be part of that thought process that you have as you're hiring employees, that, okay, what am I going to do to motivate them to continue to work?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, great. So folks, thank you, Jimmie, for being on today. And folks, we always do these shows, typically 3 days a week. And, Mondays are our entrepreneur interviews. Wednesdays are these type of interviews where we bring on an expert. A lot of times Jimmie and I do this at least once a month. And it's a lot of times it's things that we find and we talk about. And then, of course, Financial Friday, where we really focus on economics and what's going on out there as business owners. So thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you back here next time. And thank you again for watching the show.